The first person the wolf bit was the royal executioner. The second was a hunter who had survived 3 wars. By sunset, 6 guards were bleeding, 2 healers had refused to enter the courtyard, and the most feared wolf in the northern kingdoms was chained beneath the black stone towers of Blackthorn Castle. Nobody knew where it had come from.
Safe with me,
That morning, royal hunters had found it beneath a collapsed mountain pass, half buried beneath snow and broken stone. Its white fur was dark with blood. One ear was torn. A deep scar ran from the corner of its muzzle toward one pale eye. But the strangest thing was not its size. It was the way it looked at people. Not like a wild animal looking for food. Like something that remembered them. Every hand that reached toward it had been met with teeth. Every attempt to examine its wounds had ended in screams. Even the Alpha King himself had been warned not to approach. So the wolf was chained beneath the castle tower while soldiers stood around it with drawn swords. Then Elara entered the courtyard. She was nobody important. She had no title, no weapon, no royal blood. She worked in the castle kitchens and spent whatever free time she had caring for injured birds, stray dogs, and abandoned creatures that nobody else wanted. The guards shouted when they saw her walking toward the wolf. She did not stop. The Alpha King rose from his seat. The wolf lifted its head. Elara lowered herself into the snow. She placed a small bowl of warm broth beside her and simply sat there. The wolf stared at her. The courtyard fell silent. Then the creature crawled forward. Its chains scraped across the stone. Its lips pulled back. Several guards raised their swords. Elara did not move. The wolf reached her. Its enormous head hovered above her trembling hand. Then, instead of biting her, the creature pressed its scarred muzzle into her palm. And slowly, it licked her hand. Nobody in Blackthorn Castle breathed. But Elara felt something beneath the wolf's fur that made her blood run cold. A heartbeat. Then another. She looked down. The wolf was carrying a secret beneath its scars. And whatever that secret was, someone had already killed to keep it hidden. Winter had settled over Vare like a second kingdom. Snow covered the northern roads, filled the branches of the ancient pines, and buried the stones marking the old border between the human lands and the territory once ruled by the northern wolf clans. From the highest tower of Blackthorn Castle, the world looked almost peaceful. White valleys stretched toward blue mountains. Smoke rose from distant villages. Ravens crossed the pale morning sky. But peace had become a fragile thing in Vare. For 3 weeks, travelers had disappeared along the northern road. 2 farming villages had been found abandoned. Sheep had vanished from locked pens. And several hunters had returned from the forest with stories of strange black arrows buried in trees beside footprints larger than any ordinary wolf could leave. King Caelan had doubled the border patrols. He had ordered the gates closed after sunset. And he had personally questioned every captain who returned from the north. Caelan was 32 years old, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and feared throughout the neighboring kingdoms. He had inherited the throne after his father's death and had spent most of his reign proving that he was more than a young king wearing an old crown. His people called him the Iron Alpha. Enemies called him worse. But there was one subject that could still make the king's expression go completely still. His younger brother. Prince Adrian had disappeared 12 years earlier. There had been no body, no grave, no final message. Only a broken sword discovered near the northern mountains. Caelan had never accepted that his brother was dead. He simply had no proof that he was alive. That morning, while the king stood over a map in the war chamber, the doors opened hard enough to strike the stone wall. A hunter stumbled inside. Snow covered his shoulders. Blood stained his sleeve. Caelan looked up. What happened? The hunter swallowed. We found something in the pass. The room went quiet. What kind of something? The hunter's face had gone pale. A wolf. Caelan stared at him. We have wolves. Not like this one. The hunter placed a broken piece of chain on the table. It was thick iron, bent almost in half. Caelan touched it. The metal was still marked with fresh scratches. Where? Raven's Pass. Every captain in the room exchanged glances. Raven's Pass was nearly 40 miles north of the castle. Nobody traveled there in winter unless they had no choice. Caelan reached for his cloak. "Take me to it." By afternoon, the hunters had returned with the creature. The castle courtyard had never seen anything like it. The wolf was enormous. Its shoulders came almost to the chest of a grown man, and even wounded, it moved with terrifying strength. 6 hunters struggled to keep it restrained. The moment one soldier approached with a metal hook, the wolf lunged. The chain snapped tight. The soldier fell backward. The wolf's teeth closed around his forearm. He screamed. Another guard rushed forward. The animal released the first man only to strike at the second. Within seconds, the courtyard erupted into shouting. Caelan ordered everyone back. The wolf stood in the center of the courtyard, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from its muzzle. For one brief moment, Caelan saw something in its eyes. Not rage. Fear. Then the creature snarled again. The castle healers tried to approach. It attacked. The royal beastkeeper tried. It attacked. A veteran hunter tried. He left with 4 deep wounds across his shoulder. By sunset, the entire castle knew about the beast. People began calling it the feral wolf. Some said it was possessed. Others said it had killed the missing villagers. A few whispered that it was an omen. Elara heard every version while carrying a basket of linen through the servants' corridor. She said nothing. She had learned long ago that servants survived by listening more than speaking. She was 26 and had lived at Blackthorn for almost 6 years. Nobody knew much about her. She had arrived after losing the only family she had left and had taken whatever work the castle offered. She cleaned herbs. She washed dishes. She helped in the kitchens. And when nobody was watching, she cared for the injured animals that wandered near the castle walls. That evening, she found a small bird beneath the kitchen window. One wing was broken. She wrapped it in a piece of linen and carried it somewhere warm. The head cook noticed. "You'll never learn." Elara smiled faintly. "Learn what? That you cannot save everything." Elara looked down at the trembling bird. "No." She gently adjusted the cloth around its wing. But sometimes something survives because someone tried. The cook shook her head. Then the bells began ringing. Everyone froze. 1, 2, 3. The warning bell. A messenger had arrived from the north. By the time Elara reached the courtyard, the king was already there. The messenger stood before him, covered in snow. "Your Majesty," the man gasped. "Grey Hollow is gone." Caelan's face hardened. Gone. No survivors found. A murmur moved through the courtyard. The messenger continued. "We found houses buried beneath snow, doors broken from the inside. No bodies." Then something behind him began growling. Everyone turned. The wolf had lifted its head. Its ears pointed toward the mountains. It began pulling against its chains. Not toward the messenger. Toward the north. Caelan noticed. So did Elara. The wolf's breathing became faster. Then it howled. The sound rolled through the castle courtyard and disappeared into the mountains. Elara felt the hair rise on her arms. Because somewhere far beyond the walls, something answered. Not with a howl. With a distant horn. The wolf stopped struggling. It stared into the darkness. And for the first time, Elara understood. It wasn't trying to escape. It was trying to warn them. The next morning, Blackthorn Castle woke beneath a sky the color of steel. The wolf had not slept. Neither had Elara. She had spent most of the night thinking about the creature's eyes. There had been pain in them, not ordinary animal fear. The kind of fear that came from remembering something terrible and knowing it might happen again. She carried a bowl from the kitchen. Warm broth. Bones. Herbs. Nothing expensive. The royal cooks had been feeding the wolf raw venison, but it refused almost everything. Elara had noticed that. She had noticed many things. The creature flinched whenever the iron chains moved. It reacted to the smell of certain oils. It became restless when the northern wind blew. And every time the warning bells rang, it stared toward the mountains. These were not random behaviors. Something had taught the wolf to fear. Elara stopped outside the enclosure. The guards watched her. "Don't." She looked at them. "Don't what?" "Go closer." I'm only leaving food. The guard laughed nervously. That is what the last man said. Elara placed the bowl on the ground. The wolf watched. She stepped back. It did not move. She waited. Eventually, the creature lowered its head and smelled the broth. It ate. Slowly. Carefully. Elara smiled. It was the first time she had seen the wolf eat without trembling. The following day, she returned. And the day after that. Each time, she sat a little closer. Never touching. Never forcing. The wolf began waiting for her. The soldiers noticed. So did King Caelan. He began watching from the upper gallery. He saw how Elara never stared directly into the wolf's eyes. He saw how she turned her body slightly sideways, making herself less threatening. He saw how she spoke softly, even though she knew the animal could not understand her words. Most of all, he saw something nobody else had managed to achieve. Silence. The wolf became calm around her. But Lord Varric did not like it. Varric was Caelan's commander. He had served the previous king and had remained at court after Caelan inherited the throne. He was tall, silver-haired, and respected by the soldiers. But there was something cold behind his eyes. The animal should be killed, Varric told Caelan. Caelan looked down into the courtyard. Elara sat outside the enclosure. Why? It is dangerous. So are soldiers. Varric's jaw tightened. This thing has already injured 7 men. And none of those men managed to calm it. Because it is a beast. Caelan turned toward him. Then why does it calm when she is near? Varric had no answer. His silence lasted only a moment. Then he said, perhaps she is controlling it. Caelan looked back at Elara. No. He paused. Perhaps she is listening to it. That evening, Elara discovered something beneath the wolf's fur. The creature had rolled onto its side while she cleaned a shallow wound near its shoulder. She noticed a mark, a crescent surrounded by 3 small lines. She had seen it before. Not on a wolf. In the old library. There was a book there that nobody read anymore, its pages brittle with age. It described the Northern Wolf Guardians. The symbol was identical. Elara's heart began beating faster. She went to the library after midnight. Candles flickered between tall shelves. She searched until she found the book. The pages told an old story. Long before Vare had become a powerful kingdom, the northern wolves had guarded the mountain passes. They were called Moonwardens. They were said to recognize kings who ruled with honor. The last record of them had been written nearly a century earlier. Then the record stopped. Elara turned another page. A line had been scratched out. She held the candle closer. Beneath the damaged ink, she could make out only a few words. The Moonwardens were betrayed. Then the rest disappeared beneath a torn page. Elara heard footsteps. She quickly closed the book. Lord Varric entered. He stared at her. What are you doing here? Elara lowered her eyes. Looking for a book. At this hour? She held the book against her chest. I couldn't sleep. Varric walked closer. His boots echoed against the stone floor. He looked at the book. Then at her. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. Some books are better left forgotten. Elara waited until he left. Then she returned to the courtyard. The wolf was awake. It stared at her. She sat beside the enclosure. The storm began sometime after midnight. Snow whipped through the courtyard. The guards abandoned their posts near the wall. But Elara remained. She heard the wolf whimper. Her chest tightened. It had reopened one of its wounds against the chains. She stood, unlocked the gate, and stepped inside. The wolf rose. Its lips pulled back. Elara stopped. She did not run. She slowly lowered herself into the snow. The creature watched her. 1 breath. 2. Then it lowered its head. Its enormous body moved closer. Elara's fingers trembled. The wolf placed its head beside her knee. She did not touch it. She simply sat. For the first time, the animal closed its eyes. Then the castle gates exploded. A thunderous crash shook the courtyard. Horses screamed. Guards shouted. Torches appeared beyond the walls. And dozens of black-cloaked figures emerged through the snow. The wolf's eyes snapped open. It stood between Elara and the gate. And for the first time, It was not afraid. The attack came without warning. Arrows struck the castle walls. Torches fell into the snow. Soldiers rushed toward the gates, while bells rang from every tower. Caelan drew his sword. Close the inner gates. The wolf was still beside Elara. The chains hung from its neck.
Caelan looked at them.
Then, at the approaching attackers. He made his decision. Cut them. The guards hesitated. Your Majesty? Cut the chains. An axe struck iron.
Once. Twice.
On the third blow, the chain broke. The wolf froze. For one moment, everyone expected it to run. Instead, it turned toward Elara. She stood slowly. The creature moved beside her. Caelan watched in disbelief. The wolf could have disappeared into the forest.
It chose to stay.
The attackers were driven back before dawn. But they left something behind. Black arrows. Each carried a strange mark. Elara recognized it immediately. The same crescent symbol. The same symbol that had been beneath the wolf's fur. Caelan picked up one of the arrows. His expression changed. Who knows about this symbol? Elara answered carefully. I found it in an old record. Caelan looked at her. Show me. The next morning, they left for the northern mountains. Caelan, Elara, the healer Malin,
6 guards,
and the white wolf. The journey took 3 days. The deeper they traveled, the quieter the world became. They passed abandoned cottages, empty barns. A watchtower with its roof burned away. At one village, Elara found a child's wooden horse half buried beneath snow. She picked it up. No footprints surrounded the house. No bodies. Only silence. Malin looked toward the mountains. Where did everyone go? The wolf suddenly stopped. Its ears lifted. Elara followed its gaze. Nothing. Then the creature ran toward a line of trees. The guards raised their weapons. Caelan stopped them. They followed. Behind the trees was a ravine, and inside it were wolves.
Dozens of them. Dead.
Elara covered her mouth. White fur stained the snow.
Some were young.
Some were old. One had been wearing a broken iron collar. Caelan stared. His face lost all color. The wolf stood among them. It lowered its head. A low sound escaped its throat. Not anger.
Grief.
Elara approached slowly. She knelt beside the nearest body. The same silver symbol marked its shoulder. Malin whispered, Moonwardens. Caelan looked at him. You know them? I know the stories. The wolf moved toward a large stone near the back of the ravine. There were claw marks across it. Beneath them, hidden under ice, was a royal emblem. Caelan scraped the snow away. The emblem was unmistakable. Ver's crown. His own family crest. Caelan stepped backward.
No.
The wolf stared at him. For the first time, Caelan looked afraid. Not of the animal. Of the truth. They returned toward the castle. But Varric was waiting. His soldiers surrounded the road. He raised his sword. The wolf is responsible for the northern deaths. Caelan stared at him. You know that is a lie. Varric's expression hardened. Then prove it. The soldiers advanced. The wolf growled. One man raised his bow. Elara stepped in front of the animal. The arrow was aimed directly at her. Caelan shouted her name. Varric ordered the soldiers forward. Then the wolf moved. It did not attack. It simply stood beside Elara, shoulder against shoulder. A strange silence fell over the road. Caelan looked at Varric. You wanted it dead before we found the bodies. Varric's face changed. Only slightly, but enough. Caelan saw it. The commander turned and fled. His soldiers followed. When the king searched Varric's abandoned camp, they found royal documents. Old ones. Sealed by Caelan's father. One page mentioned Prince Adrian. Caelan read it twice. Then a third time. His hands began to shake. Adrian had not died in the mountains. Someone had ordered him taken north. And the final line contained only 4 words. The wolf went with him. Caelan returned to Blackthorn Castle, carrying a truth that had changed the shape of his entire life. His brother might be alive. His father's reign might have been built upon a crime. And Varric, the man he had trusted with his armies, had been hiding the truth. The court did not know yet. Varric had moved faster. Before Caelan could expose him, the commander had already gathered witnesses. 3 villagers claimed the wolf had attacked their homes. 2 soldiers claimed they had seen Elara communicating with the animal. And 1 man stepped forward with a scar across his face. The wolf saw him. It became completely still. Then it lunged. Caelan barely stopped it. The man's face had gone white. Elara understood. The wolf knew him. Varric had brought one of the killers from the ravine into the courtroom. The animal remembered. The truth was becoming impossible to hide. But Varric did not wait. He struck that same night. The castle gates closed. Soldiers loyal to him filled the corridors. Caelan fought his way through them. Steel rang beneath the stone arches. Elara ran through the chaos with the wolf beside her. They reached the old library. Caelan found another hidden record. A letter from Adrian. It explained everything. Varric had discovered that the Moonwardens protected an ancient mountain passage leading into neighboring lands. He wanted the passage for himself. He planned to start a war. The wolves had refused to allow his soldiers through. So Varric had ordered their destruction. Adrian had discovered the plan.
He tried to stop it.
He disappeared. The wolf had survived. And somehow, 12 years later, it had returned. Caelan closed his eyes. My brother knew. Elara stood beside him. He may still be alive. A sword struck the library door. Varric entered. He attacked before Caelan could turn. The king fell. Blood spread across his side. Elara screamed. The wolf attacked Varric, forcing him backward. Varric escaped. The castle was no longer safe. Caelan could barely walk. Elara helped him into the forest. The wolf followed. Snow covered their tracks. For hours they moved through the trees. Eventually they reached a clearing. Caelan collapsed. Elara pressed cloth against his wound. The wolf stood watch. Then she noticed something. Varric had stolen the royal seal. Without it, Caelan could not prove his authority to the northern clans. We have to get it back. The wolf looked toward the distant trees. Elara understood. She removed the cloth from her shoulder and tied it around the animal's neck. Go. The wolf stared at her. She swallowed. Take it to whoever can help him. The creature disappeared into the forest. Elara waited. 1 hour. Then 2. Snow continued falling. No wolf returned. She sat beneath a pine tree, holding Caelan's hand while his breathing grew weaker. She thought she had lost the animal. Then something touched her boot. She looked down. The royal seal lay in the snow. The wolf stood behind it.
Alive.
Breathing hard. Its fur was streaked with blood. Elara's eyes filled with tears. She reached for it. The wolf stepped forward and lowered its head against her chest. For the first time, Elara wrapped both arms around its neck. Then horns sounded beyond the trees.
1, 2, 3.
Caelan opened his eyes. Varric's army had found them. They were surrounded. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Hundreds of soldiers waited between the trees. Torches burned through the snowfall. Varric rode at the front. Caelan stood despite his wound. Elara remained beside him. The wolf stood on her other side. Varric laughed. You cannot win. Caelan looked at him. I don't need to. He raised the royal seal. Your own soldiers will decide. Varric's smile faded. Then the wolves appeared. One by one. First from the ridge. Then from the trees. Then from behind the rocks. White bodies emerged from the storm. The surviving Moonwardens had come. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Nobody spoke. Then a man stepped from the wolves. Older now. Scarred. His hair streaked with gray. Caelan stared at him. The man looked back. For 12 years, Caelan had imagined 1,000 ways his brother might return. None had prepared him for this. Adrian. The man nodded. Caelan crossed the snow. The brothers embraced. For a moment, there was no kingdom, no throne, no war. Only 2 brothers who had believed they would never see each other again. Adrian explained everything. He had survived because the Moonwardens had found him after Varric's men left him wounded in the mountains.
He had stayed with them, protected them,
waited for the day he could expose the truth. The wolf had been his companion, the last guardian who had escaped the massacre. The animal was not feral by nature. It had become feral because everyone it trusted had been killed. Varric attacked before the explanation could continue. His soldiers charged. The wolves scattered through the snow. Steel met fur. But the wolves did not slaughter the men who dropped their weapons. They fought only those who continued attacking. The white wolf stayed near Elara. Varric saw her. He raised his sword. She froze. The wolf moved between them. The blade struck. The animal collapsed. Elara fell to her knees.
No.
The wolf did not move. Snow began covering its body. Something inside Elara broke. She pressed her hands against its fur. The creature's eyes remained closed. Caelan confronted Varric. The commander had nowhere left to run. The evidence was in the king's hands. Adrian was alive. The Moonwardens were witnesses. And Varric's own soldiers had heard the truth. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Varric stood alone. His empire of fear ended without a grand battle. It ended when the men who had obeyed him finally understood what he had made them serve. He was arrested. But Elara did not watch. She remained beside the wolf. The snow kept falling. She pressed her forehead against its head. You came back for me. Nothing. Her tears disappeared into its fur. Then, very faintly, she felt movement. The wolf breathed.
Once.
Again. Its eyes opened. Elara laughed through her tears. Caelan knelt beside them. The wolf looked at him, then at Elara, and lowered its head. Around them, the Moonwardens emerged from the forest. They approached slowly. One by one, they lowered their heads toward Elara. She looked at Adrian. What does that mean? He smiled. They have chosen you. For what? Adrian looked toward the mountains. To guard what remains. Spring came slowly to Ver. Snow melted from the lower valleys. Rivers broke free from ice. And for the first time in many years, the northern roads opened without soldiers marching along them. The truth of Varric's crimes was made public. Villages learned what had really happened. The names of the Moonwardens were restored. And the old border was changed. No longer was it a line separating humans from wolves. It became a place where both could live. Caelan ruled differently after that winter. He still carried the strength that had earned him the name Iron Alpha, but something in him had softened. He listened more. He questioned old traditions. He visited villages himself. And every year, he traveled north to the sanctuary. Elara lived there now. She had been offered rooms in the castle, jewels, a title, a place at court. She refused them. She preferred the mountains, the animals, the quiet, and the enormous white wolf that followed her wherever she went. Its scars never disappeared. Neither did the memories. Some wounds were not meant to vanish. They were meant to become proof that survival was possible. The wolf no longer attacked every stranger, but it remained cautious. Children were taught not to chase it. Hunters were taught to lower their weapons before entering the sanctuary. And every winter, villagers left food at the forest edge. Not because they were afraid, because they were grateful. 1 year after the battle, the first winter festival was held at Blackthorn Castle. Snow fell softly. Lanterns hung from the trees. Music drifted through the courtyard. People gathered near the sanctuary entrance. Then Elara appeared. The wolf walked beside her. The same wolf that had once terrified an entire castle. The same wolf that had bitten soldiers. The same wolf that had been called a monster. It walked calmly through the crowd. A little girl stood behind her father. She watched the wolf with wide eyes. Elara knelt. The wolf stopped. The child took one small step forward. Her father whispered something. The girl continued. She held out her hand. The wolf lowered its head. The little fingers touched its white fur. Nothing happened. No growl. No teeth. Only a slow breath. The child smiled. And suddenly, the crowd understood. The wolf had not been saved by chains. It had not been changed by force. It had not forgotten what humans had done. It had simply learned that one human hand could be different from all the others. Elara walked toward the old stone steps. Caelan stood there. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. No crown could explain what had grown between them. No title was needed. It had begun with trust. It had grown through danger. And it had survived because neither had tried to possess the other. The wolf came to Elara's side. She sat in the snow, just as she had on that first night. The creature lowered itself beside her. Elara extended her hand. The wolf pressed its muzzle against her palm. Then it licked her hand. The courtyard fell silent. But this time, nobody reached for a sword. Nobody stepped backward. Nobody called it a monster. Snow landed softly on its white fur. Elara smiled. The wolf closed its eyes. And high above them, the northern mountains glowed beneath the moon. For years, people would tell the story of the feral wolf that bit everyone. They would tell how it frightened soldiers and challenged kings. They would tell how it survived the massacre of its pack. They would tell how it helped expose a traitor and saved a kingdom from war. But the oldest people in Ver told a different part of the story. They said the wolf had never really needed taming. It needed someone brave enough to sit beside it without asking anything in return. Someone willing to remain when fear made everyone else leave. Someone willing to offer a hand without demanding trust. And perhaps that was why, on the coldest night of the year, when the wind moved through the trees and the wolves called from the mountains, the great white guardian always returned to the same place. Beside Elara. Because sometimes the deepest wounds cannot be healed by power. Sometimes they cannot be healed by promises. Sometimes they cannot even be healed by time. Sometimes all a wounded heart needs is one quiet person who refuses to walk away. And beneath the falling snow, the Alpha King's once feral wolf rested its head in Elara's lap. For the first time in many years, it slept without fear. And all around them, the kingdom slept too. Safe.
At peace.
Home.